So welcome everyone to our second National Coalition meeting this year. My name is Rakshan Balachandran and I'm the Reforestation organizer at Nature Canada. And I just want to start off with the land acknowledgement. So I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Indigenous peoples of all the lands that we are on today. While we meet today on a virtual platform, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands which we each call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improving our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures. From coast to coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that call this land home. So I know this was a very general land acknowledgement, but if you'd like to share your own personalized one in the chat, you're more than welcome to. Okay. So moving on, I just wanted to do some housekeeping and share some updates before we move on to our meeting agenda. So I want to share the sign-on letter that that Nature Canada was sending to NRCan on behalf of all of you all and the Nature Network. So the purpose of the letter was to highlight the accessibility barriers and the biodiversity concerns that many of you mentioned, and we had also a list of proposed recommendations that were also suggested from organizations across Canada in our Nature Network. So eventually we had more than 100 organizations sign on. So we really appreciate the support. And the objective essentially of this letter is to advocate for a more effective 2 billion tree program while continuing to take advantage of this opportunity to reforest a lot of Canada and advance our climate change adaptation and biodiversity objectives. So once again, we'd like to thank you for your support. So the letter was sent out today, and we will keep you posted on the response that we get from Minister Wilkinson and NRCan. I also want to share a 2 billion tree update. So the upcoming proposal submission deadlines for the tree planting streams are August 10th and October 12th. The capacity building stream, which we were expecting to open this summer, was announced to be opening later in the year. But I just want to stress again that Nature Canada is here to support. So whether it be through distributing information, updates on the program, advocacy support, so helping advocacy efforts to advocate for your municipality to take part in the program, providing feedback on the proposal and attending meetings with other stakeholders. We're here to support in any way we can be of help. And following this meeting, we will be releasing a really brief survey. It'll take less than 3 to 5 minutes to complete, and it's just an idea to get a sense of who's interested in applying to the 2 billion tree program, what sort of projects that you have going on right now, what you have planned for the future, and how you'd like Nature Canada to support you all. Great. And moving on, so this is the overview for our meeting today. So we're just going to look at the opportunity for municipal engagement in the 2 billion tree program. And I'll be presenting about lobbying techniques and resources, followed by a quick Q&A period for that. And then afterwards, the second part of the meeting, we'll be looking at 2BT aggregators, so current aggregators in the 2 billion tree program, and the potential Nature Canada aggregator funding that might be available starting next year. And we want to get the Nature Network's input on that and look at next steps. So what we're seeing right now for the 2 billion tree program, there's 2 eligible streams for cities to apply to. There's the urban planting stream, of course, where applicants need to plant at least 10,000 trees every year. And also the capacity building stream, where you get a grant of up to $150,000 per year for 2 years to build up capacity and be able to apply to the planting streams in the near future. So there's You've probably been aware of the recent report by the Commissioner of the Environment and Sustainable Development that the 2 billion tree program is falling short of meeting its planting targets. And NRCan is obviously seeking to increase its planting numbers. And what's also pretty optimistic about this is that cities that are successful in their 2 billion tree proposals are on the rise. So within the last 3 months, we've had the recent recipients, as you can see here. Edmonton, Montreal, Toronto, Waterloo, have all received various levels of funding to plant trees in their municipalities. So there's a real importance in engaging in municipal advocacy for tubular trees, because municipalities are often strapped for funding and capacity, especially with regards to urban forestry. And this is an opportunity for cities to capitalize on federal support. And they can either send in a solo proposal to either urban planting or capacity building streams, or they can also send a joint proposal along with other cities in their region or other partners as well. And this can help further reduce capacity barriers that they might be having and maybe reaching that 10,000 tree planting target alone. So why do we want municipalities to apply for 2 billion trees? It's because that these efforts, they can further our climate change adaptation and biodiversity objectives through canopy cover increases within the city. So I just wanted to take a moment to present about some lobbying and advocacy techniques. So obviously this isn't, these are very common techniques, and it's not, and obviously like when we're doing an advocacy campaign in the city, it needs to be very context specific. So you're more than welcome to, email us and contact Nature Canada for help on how to adapt such a campaign for your city. I just want to run through these techniques. So the first step would be to build a relationship with your champion councillor and city staff. Number 2 would be to prepare your key asks. Number 3, amplifying the public's voice. And number 4 would be making the relationship mutual. So we're just going to take a look at each of these strategies. So when you're building relationships, you want to identify and connect with the decision makers and the local champions on city council. So if there's a councillor who's particularly supportive of establishing green spaces and supporting the environment, it'd be worth to connect with them and see how they can be of support to you. It'd also be worth connecting with the urban forestry department, connecting with the staff, and you want to establish a point of contact with both the city council and with the urban forestry department, and you want to try to understand the local context, see what's been tried by the city, what projects they have going on, what barriers that they're running into, what's preventing them from maybe achieving some of their goals, and you want to explore potential opportunities. And this might be a way to bring in the 2 billion tree program. And the next step would be to prepare the pitch. So before you prepare your key asks, you want to research what the city is already doing, what the city has planned. So looking at the city's urban forest management plan or the UFMP, any relevant tree bylaws and policies, and anything that councillors or city staff have promised, you want to take a look at those. And afterwards, you want to prepare your key asks. And you want to make sure you want to keep your list clear and concise. So it could either be that you're advocating for your city to take advantage of the 2 billion tree program, or you want your city to develop an urban forest management plan. So not every city has an urban forest management plan or a tree bylaw. And these are really integral policies and policy documents that help ensure the growth and long-term protection of canopy cover in a city. So those are also some things that you can advocate for when you're working with your city. And in terms of preparing your pitch, Nature Canada is more than willing to help you out here. And the following resources we have to support you include one-on-one meetings. We also have email and formal letter templates if you'd like to reach out to your city council or to your urban forestry department. And we're also more than willing to be present at any stakeholder meetings that you're arranging and that you'd like to have us there for. Another important part of political or municipal advocacy is to amplify the public's voice. So you want to clearly communicate your advocacy efforts with the local community. You want to be transparent about what it is, what changes that you want to see, and what you're hoping to see implemented. And you also want to get the public's input and convey those as well, to the decision makers and the staff that you're speaking with. But in the case that you want to get the public support and really convey it to city council or the urban forestry department, there's two pretty popular ways of doing that. One is an organizational sign-on letter. So just like the one we did to NRCan, what you can do is pen a letter to a council, to city council, or to the urban forestry department, and you can get local organizations, any ally organizations, partners, local, regional, or federal organizations to sign on to that letter, and to just show their support. And another way is to also prepare a petition and get citizens of the local community involved and show their support as well. So again, we also have sign-on letter templates available, and we have outreach tips and support to help you with that. The last tip, or the last strategy, is to make the relationship mutual. So I know that a lot of organizations have mentioned to us that, you know, advocacy is a tricky process, because like often you feel like that you're just asking for things, and it's key to make that relationship mutual and reciprocal, and to make sure that you're also giving something in turn. So you want to identify how your organization can be a support, and how you can collaborate with the city and other local groups in achieving common objectives. And you want to ask your decision makers about what type of support they need, and deliver that accordingly, and to share any relevant resources that might be of help to them when making decisions or seeking to implement things. And again, Nature Canada is more than willing to help out in terms of like one-on-one meetings, to also network you with other organizations. So we do have our Nature Network, which consists of over 1,300 organizations across Canada. So we're well positioned to connect you with other organizations that might be in your locality or region that you might not be aware of. So that's one way we can be a support, and we can also help distribute resources to our network as well, and help spread the word. So yeah, so before I conclude, I just want to reaffirm that these are really common strategies, and when we're trying to do advocacy efforts or start a campaign in our own city, no two campaign would be similar. So it's important that it's context specific, and we're more than willing to help you adapt it to your city and make sure it's successful. Yeah, but before we move on to the latter part of the meeting, I thought we could maybe open up to a quick Q&A session about just municipal advocacy in general, or if anyone has any comments. So if you do have any questions or comments, please use the raise your hand function on Zoom, and I'll call on you. Alternatively, you can also post your question in the chat. Yeah, Rob.
Hi, Rakshan.
Rob.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, cool. So I just have a question, if you have any experience dealing with urban forestry departments that may not be entirely supportive, and if you have any advice on how to approach that situation. And I think you have good advice. Like I think we need to start reaching out to the superintendent of urban forestry, and the one meeting we did have didn't go very well. But I think, so we've kind of been reluctant to engage them, but I think we need to build that relationship, and I'm just, looking for maybe some advice.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the hardest part is like when city staff or city councilors are, I guess, sort of opposed to what we're trying to propose. And I think, part of that is just trying to build that relationship and kind of understand where they're coming from, and understand like why they're maybe opposed to what we're like proposing, and what the barriers that they're perceiving. So I think in this case, it's a good idea to kind of get like maybe a counselor's support. And I know there's a number of counselors that the Calgary Climate Hub is connected with, and it'd be a good idea maybe to like set up like a joint meeting with the counselor also present and the urban forestry departments, and not just like going in alone, and maybe to like bring in some allied organizations and stakeholders into that meeting as well. But to also like kind of like open it up and see what options that the urban forestry staff are also proposing and what they have in mind, and kind of seeing if we can come to like a negotiation, I guess, if that works, if that helps, Rob.
So would you recommend like a one-on-one meeting to figure out why they're opposed to it and then bring in like outside support, or?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So like a one-on-one meeting first to like kind of identify, to like learn the context of it. So
Right, yeah,
because like there's a lot of things that we're like, I guess not aware about that they know. So it's important to like get their insights, why they have that position, and what are the barriers that they have. And a lot of the times, like what we can propose is like stuff that they might not know about. So like the 2 billion tree program, a lot of cities departments aren't aware of the program. So it's important to like show, I guess, like potential opportunities and solutions, but and like not, I guess, like suggest anything fixed yet. Yeah, it might be a good idea to have like a one-on-one meeting first, just to learn the context a little, and then have like a group meeting with you know, like where we can welcome the department to like invite their own like allies and stakeholders, and you could also invite, you know, your supportive counselors, partner organizations, to have like a bit of a productive conversation about that.
great, okay, thank you.
For sure. I have a question from the chat from Laura. So yeah, so I'll actually touch on that in the latter part of the meeting. So we are working with Tree Canada to an extent, and that's kind of through the 2 billion tree program. So I'll expand on that then. Dwayne, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah. Hey, Rakshan, how are you?
Good, Dwayne. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. Also from Sustainable Milton, we've been chatting.
Yeah.
I think this may have been answered before, but just for clarity, are we able to do shrubs, and does the size of the tree matter?
Yeah, so the size of the tree doesn't matter, but in terms of shrubs, I think that's one of the parts that we kind of pointed out in the letter that we just sent out about kind of increasing the amount of funding that's allocated towards planting shrubs, because what we've been seeing is that NRCan's been pretty inconsistent with like how much funding that they've been granting towards organizations for planting shrubs. So like for some organizations, like 15% of funds can go towards planting shrubs, and for others it's less. So yeah, we're trying to advocate for more consistent funding and increased funding as well, because we do recognize that shrubs are really important to biodiversity and to like a successful ecosystem. But yeah, so far we don't have, or I don't have like an answer on that right now, but I'll keep you guys updated on what we hear from NRCan.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if anyone else has any questions before we move on. Great, so we'll move on, but you know, if you do have any questions that pop up after the meeting, please feel free to email me, and we can have a quick chat. Yeah, so let's move on to the second part of the meeting. So it's about finding aggregators. So for those of you who aren't aware of it, aggregators are really, really important in supporting organizations that are unable to meet tree planting requirements. So any organization can be an aggregator if you're putting together like a joint proposal, but it's I think it's important to know that aggregators will be provided funds for administrative costs, and also aggregators cannot plant trees. So if you're an organization who's serving as an aggregator for a 2 billion tree proposal, you'll only be responsible, and you'll only be like allowed to use the funds for taking care of the logistics and like managing the different agreements that you're responsible for. So you can't use that for doing your own tree planting project. So especially, so we are well aware that, you know, a lot of our nature network partners, a lot of organizations across Canada, you know, they're struggling to meet those tree planting requirements. So finding aggregators and working and submitting joint proposals with other groups so that the number of trees that they're planting can combined meet that minimum tree planting requirement, is an effective way of getting more organizations like engaged with the program. So we're well aware of that, and in terms of the aggregators that we are aware of, here are the three. So there's Tree Canada. So as Laura was asking earlier, so Tree Canada and Nature Canada were working together to kind of maximize the organizational uptake of their national greening program. So the Tree Canada program, they do have a requirement of planting around 4,500 trees and replanting around 1 to 2 hectares. But they do provide arborists and consultant support to help plan out how to plant the right species and how to manage the forest appropriately. They also do have a development team that can potentially find local sponsors and work up the funding to cover your 50% match of the funds for the project costs. So that's also helpful to know. The second aggregator is Forest Ontario. So Forest Ontario does this work under Forest Recovery Canada. So they do partner up with organizations across Canada, not just limited to Ontario, to just reforest areas. So they do have full service tree planting. So they work with all their partners from the seed collection stages to nursery growing, to doing the consulting work about guiding through what species to plant, and how to plant them, and they do the planting, and they also work through the fundraising part of it as well to help gather the funds for the projects. And lastly, there's a Clean Foundation. So this is a Nova Scotia-based organization, and the program is also limited to groups in Nova Scotia. So they're getting funding from both the government of Nova Scotia and the 2 Billion Tree program, but they do provide up to 100% of funding for tree planting projects, and they're able to support you all through connecting with service suppliers and local seed stock inventories. So these are 3 current aggregators that we're aware of. We did have aggregators in the past, such as Green Communities Canada, but they've already submitted proposals. Yeah, so we will be sending like a follow-up email with contact information for each of these aggregators if you're interested in learning more and potentially partnering with them. But yeah, I was just wondering if anyone has any quick questions at this point about any of the aggregators. So again, feel free to use the chat or raise your hand using the Zoom function. Great. So yeah, so as I mentioned, we will make the contact information for each of these aggregators available. Okay, so yeah, so what we mean by an aggregator is, I'll go back a slide. So an aggregator in the 2 Billion Tree program context is when you have a joint proposal. So when 2 to 3 or more organizations submit a single proposal together, they have to have an aggregator. So an organization that can serve as an aggregator to kind of take care of like the logistics. So they, sorry, I'll get to that question next, William. So to take care of the logistics and the tree planting agreements for each of their partner organizations. So what this does is that, like, for example, if an organization is only able to plant 1,000 trees in an urban setting, they're not able to meet that 10,000 tree planting requirement. So if they're able to partner up with other organizations whose tree planting totals combined can meet that requirement, they're able to submit a joint proposal, and they need an aggregator organization to help with the logistics and with like setting up the agreements and everything like that. So the aggregators, they will be provided funds for the administrative costs. And yeah, so I see your question, Janet. So they can't plant trees, and that's the response I got from NRCan. And I didn't really get like a firm explanation for that, but I can try asking again. So yeah, I'm not exactly clear about that either, but that's the response that we got from NRCan. But yeah, I'll try asking for a rationale, hopefully. Yeah. The deadlines, yeah, so let's see, for Tree Canada, and I think each of these aggregators, there's no deadlines as of right now. It's ongoing. The Nova Scotia program, if anyone's interested, the deadline to apply is the end of June. So again, in the follow-up email, I'll try to make all this information clear and put in the links for the websites and also the contacts so that you can get in touch with each of the staff from each of these aggregators and see if see if you have any questions and see if you guys can work together. So Chad, yeah, so I do get your concern, Chad. So yeah, so this is just how the program is set up. So we did advocate in our recent letter to kind of simplify this process so that it's more accessible for nonprofits and smaller organizations. But yeah, we've yet to receive like a response from that on that from NRCan. Yeah, so Jenna, it's a one application. So the aggregator organization will be submitting the proposal, and all the costs will be included in the budget section, and the costs will be like distributed accordingly in terms of like administrative and also tree planting. But yeah, I'll try to ask for explanation on that from NRCan, and I'll get a response to you all on that. Yeah, so Katya, I see your question. So you do need to have an aggregator. So like I said, it doesn't need to be any of these larger aggregators like Tree Canada, Forest Ontario, or Clean Foundation, but you need to have an organization within that joint proposal could be willing to be an aggregator. So it can be any organization, but you just need to take care of the administrative costs or the logistics, and you can't undertake any tree planting projects, unfortunately. But yeah, I'll get more explanation on that from NRCan. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for all the questions, everyone. Yeah, so like as I mentioned, I'll try to follow up with NRCan. I know their response rate has been pretty slow lately, but I'll try to get an explanation on the aggregator business and get back to you all. Yes, Laura. Yes. So the aggregator is the administrator, like the logistics manager. Yeah. Great. I'm wondering if anyone else has any questions. Great. So we'll move on. Oh, yeah, I do see your comment, Janet. Yeah, so I'm gonna have to go back to NRCan on that because I do remember that we were working with some groups to get them to do a joint proposal, and they did require us to have an aggregator. But again, yeah, we'll have to, I guess, communicate with NRCan and kind of get a clarification and an explanation on that. So I'll get in touch with them and I'll post a response soon. Yeah. Okay. So just moving on. So yeah, again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to put it in the chat and we'll address this at the end of the meeting, or you can also feel free to email me and I'll be more than happy to respond to you. Yeah, so let's look at the next section. So Nature Canada, we did want to announce, and I think we've been kind of hinting at it to some of you over the past few months, but we're trying to work on getting funding from external funders. And at this point, nothing has been finalized. So I don't want to share, the external funders that we're working with, or, how much we're trying to get, or like what projects that we're trying to fund at this moment. But we want to serve as a potential aggregator. And because, we understand like the barriers that a lot of the organizations are facing in terms of getting funding through the Two Billion Tree Program and other sources to undertake their tree planting projects. So the way this system would, I guess, sort of, we're planning to work out, again, like it hasn't been finalized yet, but we're hoping to serve as like a larger aggregator and distribute the acquired funding that we get from our external funder sources to the nature network partners. So all of you, all the organizations across Canada who are undertaking tree planting projects. So I'd imagine that it would involve submitting an application and getting the funding accordingly for the project that you're seeking to get funds for. So, and I'm hoping that this application process would be much simpler than the Tubing Tree Program or other funding applications. But essentially, the goal and why we're, I guess, trying to take on this role is because a lot of organizations have been mentioning to us that there are very few aggregators available, and we want to make tree planting easy and accessible for everyone, for all scales of organizations. And we're just trying to hope to support tree planting projects of all scales across Canada. And I wanted to take this opportunity to, I guess, share this in this meeting right now to kind of like brainstorm collectively, like what you would kind of expect from Nature Canada as a potential aggregator, and have like, I guess, a productive discussion on it. So again, I'm open to hearing your thoughts and feedback about, and these are some example questions, but we're really in the planning process still. Again, we haven't really finalized anything yet, but we just want to get an idea from you all who'd be getting the funding about, about what you'd be expecting from Nature Canada as an aggregator. So like some example questions are like, what types of projects would you undertake if you received funding? How many trees would you be hoping to plant? How do you expect funding to be distributed? And how do you want to address monitoring and maintenance requirements? So these are just some example questions, but really any thoughts or feedback are welcome as we kind of try to brainstorm this and move this along faster. But yeah, again, feel free to raise your hand on Zoom if you'd like to share your thoughts and feedback. Alternatively, you can always post your comments or questions in the chat. Yeah, so I think, yeah, so again, yeah, nothing has been finalized yet, but like we're just trying to get an idea of like what you like to use the funding for and how you use it to, I guess, like facilitate the greater planting of trees. And in your case, Shannon, I think that'd be like well justified, like about like, I guess, trying to support and organize like more local and small scale groups in doing this. And yeah, so yeah, I think that'd be a viable option, but again, we had to take it back and discuss on that further. Rob, you have your hand up?
Yeah. So the type of funding that we've been applying for, it's mostly been for the plants, right, for trees, and I think some of them, like getting the soil covered, a lot of them won't do that. They're just looking to pay for like the cost of the trees or shrubs. So there are a lot more expenses in terms of soil costs is actually quite high, and then there's event planning costs that not every available grant for tree planting covers the cost of the event, like to provide snacks and water, and then there's sort of some operating costs that we're struggling with. We did get some budget for that through our EcoTrust grant, but it's actually it wasn't enough for what now that we're more experienced with what we're doing. Like communications costs, there's a lot of social media posts and putting together like a flyer to inform the community that you're
right.
So those communications costs, we didn't have enough budget for that. And then we did have budget for a project manager 10 hours per week, and we found that that's just not enough, and we probably, more realistically, we would need a full-time project manager. So I think we have to look for other sources of grants for that kind of operational costs, but if that could be included in your program, that would be useful to us, because right now we're going to certain organizations for the trees, and then we got to go to somebody else to try and find cover the operating costs, and so we end up writing a lot of grant applications.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Rob. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Sorry, did I cut you off there? Sorry.
No, it's
okay.
fine.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, those are all valid points. And yeah, I am also scrolling through the chat and seeing like a lot of the same concerns. So yeah, obviously, we're not like fully decided on like what how we'd be getting the funding and what we'd be hoping to fund. But like yeah, so like we are just trying to get an idea of like what you'd like to get funding for, and seeing what's possible through the funds that we get acquired. But yeah, I do hear you all on like the maintenance, getting the materials, the project management parts. But yes, yeah, these are all like for sure like valuable insights. And yeah, just a small request. Yeah, if you guys are more than welcome to also raise your hand and ask your question as well, because I know there's a lot of comments in the chat, and sometimes it might be I might have scrolled through and missed some of them. So you're more than welcome to raise your hand and voice your concerns as well, or feedback. So I do see the comments about maintenance, and yeah, Jen's correct in that maintenance and like monitoring are some of the components that receive like very little funding through the 2 billion tree program. We did mention that in the letter again, but yeah, so those are really important facets of the project, and yeah, hopefully we can address that. Yes, Jim.
I just wanted to ask a question. You mentioned that there were email petition, those sort of maybe even draft app or grant application templates that you have available. How do you share those, or how do we get access to those to
oh yeah, you can directly email me. So you feel free to email me after the meeting, and I'd be more than willing to like share those with you.
Perfect, thank you.
Great. Great. Yeah, I'm just wondering. So yeah, all the comments and feedback that we've been getting is amazing. It's great. It's really important, and I really appreciate your input. We do recognize like the importance of like getting your feedback and like before we kind of like launch this, hopefully. But yeah, I'm just wondering if anyone else has the questions or any feedback or comments to share as well. Great. Well, yeah. Yes. So there is a general email address. I can include that in the follow-up email for sure. Yeah, so I think the goal is to support projects of all scales. So we're hoping to be able to support that. But yeah, we'll definitely take that into consideration as we're planning this out. Great. Yeah, so thank you for your feedback, everyone. So yeah, it's been great to just hear your comments and suggestions, and this will be like really useful as we kind of try to plan this out a bit more and you know, sort of bring this to fruition over the next few months. But yeah, in terms of next steps after the meeting, so I do want to stress that there are no regional coalition meetings for the summer, especially with the field season starting to show up. So please do enjoy your summer. Yeah, so in terms of the next steps, I will be including a follow-up email, sending that soon with the contact information and the website links for all the aggregators, the email address for Tree and Tree program, and the recording of the meeting, hopefully. And I also want you all to hopefully fill out the survey because we're trying to re-engage with their network a bit more and connect with you all and kind of advance the reforestation program a bit more and hopefully be a greater support, you know, in your efforts to engage with the Tree and Tree program or to advocate politically. And also, if you have any existing reforestation or tree planting projects that you're working on, feel free to let us know as well, and we're more than willing to see how we can be of support. Yeah, so please do fill out that survey. It'll be included in the follow-up email. It'll take less than 3 to 5 minutes to complete. And yeah, just looking forward to seeing what you all have planned in terms of projects and seeing how we can help out. And if you have any questions that you weren't able to ask during this meeting, or if you have any questions or inquiries in general, feel free to get in touch and you can contact me at my email address below. But yeah, with that being said, I'd like to thank everyone for showing up at today's meeting. Yeah, I hope you all have a great rest of the week. Thank you, everyone.